Tuesday had offered her little space to breathe. It wasn't that anything extraordinary had gone wrong. There had been no confrontation, no burst of tears, no sharp words or accidents. But the day had unfolded in the familiar rhythm of depletion. Customers who lingered too long, coworkers who asked too much without knowing it, and the soft, persistent pressure of always needing to be on. As she wiped down the last table and slipped off her apron, she could feel the invisible weight pressing down on her shoulders. Not pain exactly, but a heaviness of the spirit that needed to be shed. She didn't go home. Her younger son was already there, curled up on the couch with his headphones in, lost in whatever online world helped him unwind from his school day. He didn't need her right now, not in the way he once did. And her older son was working the late shift, clocked in at the warehouse and likely counting the minutes between deliveries. Neither of them would miss her absence this evening, and for that, she felt a small and quiet relief. What she needed tonight wasn't conversation or company. It was stillness. Instead of turning toward her apartment, she steered the car toward the preserve. The sky ahead stretched wide and open, streaked with soft light, the kind of fading sun that painted everything in rose and amber tones. She cracked the windows and let the breeze roll in, thick with the smell of warm grass and the last hint of honeysuckle. There was no music playing. She didn't want lyrics, didn't want stories told to her. She only wanted to feel the hum of the tires on the road and let her breath find its rhythm again. In the passenger seat, she had packed only the essentials: a small cloth bag with her leather-bound journal tucked inside, a pen with gold ink, and a thermos of tea she'd poured before leaving work. Her camera stayed home. She deliberately left it on the shelf, knowing that tonight wasn't for capturing images. It was for listening, for paying attention without the pressure of getting it right. The gravel lot at the preserve was nearly empty, just one other car tucked at the far end beneath a fading maple. She stepped out, stretching her back and rolling her neck slowly. The trail greeted her with the familiar crunch of earth beneath her feet and the faint scent of mint and pine rising from the path. She moved without urgency, her steps guided by a quiet internal pull that led her toward the meadow. She passed the edge of the marsh, where frogs murmured low in the reeds and dragonflies flitted through the air like sparks from an unseen fire. She paused briefly to watch the water ripple beneath a gentle breeze but didn't linger. The sun had begun its descent behind the trees, casting long shadows across the path. She wanted to reach the meadow before it disappeared completely. When the trees opened, revealing the wide expanse of golden grasses and wildflowers, she exhaled. The meadow shimmered in the waning light, a soft ocean of color and motion. The air was filled with the sound of crickets tuning their instruments for the evening's chorus. Blooms of Queen Anne's lace and blue vervain nodded in the wind, their stems swaying gently, as if greeting her with a language too old for words. She found her usual spot beneath the old oak tree whose limbs stretched wide over the edge of the field. The roots spread like quiet fingers into the soil, and the grass beneath it had been flattened over time by many visits, some her own, some by deer or foxes or the wind itself. She lowered herself carefully, crossing her legs and letting her hands fall to her thighs. The journal rested in her lap. For a while she didn't open it. The world around her was breathing. She watched the light shift from gold to violet, the sky changing moment by moment as the sun sank lower. The warm tones softened into cooler hues, casting everything in a muted glow. Shadows stretched longer across the meadow, and the details began to blur, not into darkness but into a softer kind of seeing. Eventually, she opened the journal. The pages felt cool against her palms, the gold ink catching what little light remained. She began to write, slowly, Not to document the day, but to release what lingered behind her eyes and at the base of her throat. There's a silence here that holds me differently. Not like the silence of a house after everyone's gone to bed. Not the silence of holding back tears, but the kind that breathes with you. The kind that makes you feel whole even when you aren't. The words came in slow waves, not rushed but steady. She wrote about how her legs still ached from Sunday's fast-paced hike, about the way her younger son had barely looked up from his headphones, about the moment earlier at work when she had smiled even though her chest had felt tight. She didn't need to solve anything on these pages. She only needed to name what she carried, and in naming it, let it loosen its hold. As she wrote, the fireflies appeared. At first, just one hovering a few feet away, blinking once, then vanishing. Then another. Then a dozen. Soon the meadow pulsed with tiny lights rising from the grasses, flickering and drifting like fallen stars looking for a place to land. She set the journal aside, leaned back on her elbows, and watched them dance. There was something profoundly ancient in their movement. No pattern, no command. Just presence. Just light. She stayed there for as long as she could, watching the field shift into darkness, her body relaxing into the earth. The crickets sang louder now, and a single owl called from the distance, its voice deep and slow, echoing through the canopy. The fireflies floated around her in silence, unafraid. She didn't take a single photograph. She didn't need to. When she finally rose and brushed the clinging seeds from her skirt, she felt quieter inside. Not empty, but cleared out. Like someone had swept a dusty room and opened the window. The walk back to the car was slow. The stars had begun to blink awake above the treetops, and the wind had cooled enough to make her pull her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. She opened the car door, placed the journal on the seat beside her, and sat for a moment longer before turning the key. The world would be waiting for her tomorrow. Her sons would need her. Work would call. But for tonight, the meadow had reminded her that silence could be enough, and that sometimes being unseen was exactly what she needed to feel seen again.